Hey, what's up guys, TechTine here and I'm back again with a brand new video. Before I begin, I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you do enjoy my content, make sure you leave a thumbs up. Also make sure you're subscribed to the channel. So with that being said, today we're going to be comparing the Samsung Galaxy S25 versus the Galaxy S25 FE. And obviously the S25 FE has this sort of a fan edition, more of a cheaper version of the flagship S25, S25 Plus and S25 Ultra. But to be honest with you, after further testing, in my opinion, the S25 FE this time around is a smarter buy than the standard Galaxy S25. Let's have a conversation. So the first thing that we need to talk about obviously is the design and build. And they're both very similar in a way, so they use a lot of the same material in regards to the way that they're made. Even the way that they look is really close to being damn near the same phone. Right, the S25 FE could really pretend that it's a S25 Plus. Now, what the standard S25 does provide, or I guess you can say the difference is here, is that one, it is more compact, and these camera rings, they do have this sort of a black cover on top of them, so I guess you can say that. And the coloring itself, to be honest with you, I like the color of the S25 way more than I do with the standard S25 FE. The variety is just much better. It kind of gives me a Galaxy A15 vibe, but higher quality. And the sides are made out of aluminum, so it's not the titanium S25 Ultra. You also get your power button, volume up and down, all on the right hand side. The top of the phone does have two microphones. The bottom does have your USB-C that only maxes out at 25 watts. More on that later. And you also get your bottom facing speaker, and you get a triple camera setup with a main sensor being a 50 megapixel ultra wide and a telephoto sensor. Again, more on the camera later on. Now, flipping the switch and talking a little bit more about the S25 FE itself, it's a little bit of a larger footprint, but follows basically the same principles. So you still get this sort of a matte finish. The color may look different, but I mean, that's just the color of the phone. On the right hand side, the color of the phone, the color of the back, I should say, does not match the sides. It still is made out of aluminum, which is still high quality. On the bottom though, you get a faster charging speed, 45 watts, and your bottom facing speaker. So triple camera setup again, main sensor, telephoto, and ultra wide. Okay, and both of these phones are IP68 rated, so they do follow that same rating as far as water and dust resistance. So environmentally, they're both going to be pretty good as far as that. Now, putting these phones even closer and just looking at them side by side, you can immediately tell that Samsung didn't really want to change much on the design between the S25 and the S25 FE. So I guess they didn't really want to differentiate the way that these phones look. Now, if you're looking for more of a compact phone, then immediately the S25 is for you. But if you want a larger footprint design, then the S25 FE could be an option, especially if you don't want to spend that extra money on the S25 Plus. So other than that, they're very similarly built for the most part. Obviously, the S25 is going to be slightly thinner and slightly lighter than the S25 FE, but that's something you just gotta hold both of these phones in your hand to determine which one would be the right fit for you. But then again, like I said, compact S25, larger footprint if you want a larger device, S25 FE. So let's go ahead and scratch off the design and move on to the display of both of these devices. Now, there are slight differences in the display, but again, they're not dramatic in my personal opinion. So both the S25 and the S25 FE do give us a AMOLED display. So the S25 has a 6.2-inch Full HD dynamic AMOLED. The S25 FE has a 6.7-inch Full HD Plus dynamic AMOLED display. Now the differences become this. So the S25 has 120 Hz LTPO display, which means that the refresh rate is adaptive, so it will decide when to use a higher refresh rate versus when to not use higher refresh rate, which does help in efficiency and battery life. On the other hand, the S25 FE does have a non-LTPO display, still 120 Hz. However, you can switch between 60 and 120 in the settings if you really want to. Another difference here, which I think is a little bit slightly more major, the S25 does have a 2600 nits of peak brightness versus the 1900 nits of peak brightness on the S25 FE. However, though, in my testing, I found that the display on both of these devices was really good. The quality may slightly be better on the S25, but again, it's not that dramatic of a difference to where I would dismiss the S25 FE. Now, yeah, having a higher brightness is nice. Having a more efficient display is also nice, but efficiency is questionable, and you'll see that more in the kind of performance aspect of this comparison. So yeah, So let's go ahead and keep it pushing, and we want to switch to the performance aspect of both of these devices, and that's where things can get a little bit interesting. So the standard S25 does have the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Elite processor based on a 3nm architecture, and also comes in equipped with 12GB of RAM, 128GB base storage, obviously upgradable if you want to pay extra money. Now the S25 FE comes with Samsung's own silicon processor, which is the Exynos 2400, and also has 8GB of RAM. Now obviously, as far as performance, it is less powerful, no doubt about that, but that's on paper. So benchmarks, the S25 is going to beat the S25 FE. Obviously though, with the everyday kind of world performance, they both do very good. Now here's where things can get interesting. The S25 FE, while having the lower chipset, is better in longer sustained performance. The reason that is, and I tested that with gaming, especially 3D graphic games, it does have a vapor chamber that allows for a better thermal performance in the S25 FE, which is missing on the standard S25. On top of that, the S25 FE does have a larger battery at 4900 mAh versus the 4000 mAh that is found on the Galaxy S25. While the Snapdragon 8 Elite is a more efficient processor and you get a more efficient display, the battery life through my testing was better on the S25 FE. No brainer. And honestly, I was kind of disappointed in the battery performance of the standard S25. Even though that this phone obviously is a beast when it comes to performance, it did also get warmer than I would like, to be honest. However, for the most part, the chipset, no doubt about it, is really fast, really good, but it's missing a vapor chamber and a better thermal performance and a faster charging speed. So which one is giving up a little bit more compromises? Now obviously, when it comes to synthetic benchmarks, the S25 is going to score more, but for the everyday consumer, I don't think you'd mind the performance of the S25 FE. I think in the longevity, it might be a little bit better, but the longevity is something that is not gonna, that you cannot just answer right now. You'd have to use these phones for a long period of time, and I'll give you guys a kind of a 6-month mid-cycle review later in the future. So with that being said, that's basically the performance of the S25 versus the S25 FE. While the S25 does have the better chipset, more RAM, and multitasking is better on the S25, the real-world performance on the S25 FE is nice. So keep that in mind. A little bit of a tricky decision there. Now, the camera comparison on these devices is also interesting. So the S25 does give us a 50 megapixel main sensor, a 12 megapixel ultra wide, and a 10 megapixel 3x telephoto sensor, plus a 12 megapixel front facing camera. And the S25 is capable of recording 8K video, so does the S25 FE. Now, a triple camera setup is pretty much the same on the rear, but the telephoto is 8 megapixels versus the 10 on the S25, and also the front-facing camera is 12 megapixels. Now, there are some slight downgrades in the quality and processing, which is expected on the S25 FE. However, through my testing, they're slight. They're not dramatic. Obviously, in harsher conditions, the S25 did perform better, but for the most part, I don't think you'd go wrong with either of these cameras. So, the video capability, I want you to watch it, and you tell me how you feel about it. Hey, what's up guys, TechTime here, and this is a quick comparison between the camera, the video quality of the Galaxy S25 and the Galaxy S25 FE. Now to be honest with you, yeah, the S25 may have slightly better camera. However, just looking at it from the viewfinder, it's kind of hard to tell. So, you tell me, do you think it's worth the extra money or not? So let me draw out my conclusion. And obviously throughout this video you hear me boasting a little bit more on the S25 FE, and that is because I'm really seeing the vision of what Samsung has been trying to do with the FE lineup. It's been kind of dead the past few generations, but I feel like the S25 FE is a really nice buy this time around, especially when comparing it to just the standard S25. Now listen, both of these phones are very capable, but if I was to choose one, my choice would be the S25 FE. And even if I'm sacrificing a little bit more of a premium, I guess, features like the LTPO display and the slightly better image processing on the camera, I really wouldn't mind what the S25 FE is bringing to the table. Now, keep in mind that the S25 is $800 versus the $650 of the S25 FE. So with that being said, ultimately, I want to hear your guys' decision in the comments below. If you had an option to choose between either of these phones, which one would you pick? Would you pick a more compact S25 or a larger display or a larger footprint S25 FE with almost the same premium features, if not slightly better, especially the battery life and charging speed? So leave your comments below. I want to thank you all so much for watching. I do greatly appreciate you all for staying tuned. I know this is sort of a longer video than you're used to, but if you stayed to this point, thank you. I appreciate it, and I will definitely catch you guys in the next one. So thank you all so much for watching. Hopefully you found this video informative. We'll talk in the next one.